in his 50s. Put this off for a couple weeks. Student loans. We've been putting it off. So the court cases are going on. Supreme Court's hearing them. It could, right now it looks like it could kind of go either way. We'll see. Hard to know. But I wanted to talk a little bit more about the overall argument behind it. And here is the big Saturday show on Fox, and they don't like this loan forgiveness thing, and they're gonna complain about that, and I think Bernie Sanders a little bit. So let's break down their bullshit. How about that? That'll be fun.
Sounds fun.
Tonight, self-described Democratic socialist Bernie Sanders defending Biden's student loan handout as the Supreme Court considers the constitutionality of Biden's plan. The senator is adamant that the loan cancellation, which some estimates put the cost at more than $400 billion to taxpayers, is not a giveaway.
Hang on.
Right. Not costing the taxpayers money.
Well, that's the question. Is it a giveaway? Right? Is that what it really is? That's what their question is. So this is Bernie and Bill Maher on the Bill Maher show. Bill Maher's kind of a libertarian, weird guy.
Biden's giveaway to people who own debt.
Giveaway is your term, not my term.
Well, they have college debt loan. Yeah. Okay. And we're going to give them money.
We're going to forgive debt.
Well, we're okay.
So when you talk about giveaways, you have major corporations in this country that make billions in profit, don't pay a nickel in taxes. The truth is you got a generation that, everything being equal, the younger generation will have a lower standard of living than their parents. And right now, these young people are leaving school deeply in debt. They're struggling economically. They deserve a break.
Gosh, I'll begin with you because they deserve.
I mean, I agree with that. And the other thing about it is the giveaway argument is such a pansy argument, because let's just look at recently, because we just talked about Silicon Valley Bank, right? The Treasury just gave them over $300 billion to secure the investments or the deposits of basically their clients who were otherwise going to get screwed, right? Well, these people, it was a high-risk bank. They should have known that going in there. So why is it that their money gets covered? And that's $300 billion they did overnight. $300 billion. What's the total cost of the Biden's student loan? They're estimating about $400 billion over 10 years. That's a giveaway. $300 billion in one day to a bunch of wealthy investors, not a giveaway. $400 billion over 10 years to a bunch of college students. That's a giveaway. Do you see how pot kettle it doesn't match here? I mean,
well, really, it's saying that the values are to give something away to a bunch of super wealthy people that were very much aware of taking or should have been, had they been doing their homework at all.
You had to be a registered investor. They should have known.
Right, that they were doing something with a certain amount of risk involved. It's okay to give away a whole bunch of money to them, but the average person that, graduated from college and, wants to have a standard of living that's equal to or greater than what their parents were, we can't give anything away to them.
Right. And the other difference, too, is from the student loan forgiveness, we're not actually giving them money.
I was going to say, I want to look at this from a linguistic standpoint. The term giveaway doesn't even make any sense, because if you're going to give something away to me, Doug, if you're going to give something away to me, I should literally receive a thing.
Yeah.
A thing should come into my possession.
Right.
This isn't putting any things into anyone's possession. All it's doing is it's making them have to stop losing things.
Well, this is money that's already been paid. Plus, it's money we're not going to get back, and I'll get into that argument in a minute. But let's go through Fox, because I love they get a panel of these people together, and it's so painful. They're trying to get their talking points out, and they don't work.
Deserve a break.
But we'll watch.
the problem here is that this is a dishonest narrative and argument that the senator is making here. 50% of these loans go to those who pursue graduate degrees. Those are people.
That's not true. Only 39% of the 39.7% of the country has a bachelor's, and only 14.4% have graduate degrees. So not even half the people that have graduate degrees, you have to remember, this covers $10,000, right? Up to $10,000, up to $20,000 if you had a Pell Grant. To get a Pell Grant, mommy and daddy have to make less than $60,000 a year.
Let's also add that Pell Grants are only given in undergraduate.
Right.
You don't get Pell Grants. They don't exist for graduate degrees. That's only an undergraduate thing right there too.
Right.
Really, their selection criteria in and of itself, it being based on Pell Grants, that means their criteria for this was all about the undergraduate degree anyway. It was all about that.
That's
Otherwise,
all.
the Pell Grant wouldn't have even been in the equation for their financial, guideline how much.
Yeah, this is all subsidized loans. Mostly subsidized, not subsidized, but they're all undergraduate loans. They're all Stafford loans. You cannot get a Stafford loan for grad school. It's all plus loans. We know that. We both went to grad school. You can't get a Stafford loan. I would love to have gotten a freaking Stafford loan for grad school, but nope, you got to sign a plus loan. All right, so let's watch this guy, Joe Concha. He's going to like his hair. He's got the wet look going.
People that become doctors and lawyers and economists.
No.
Right?
No.
So they're the type of people who can pay back the loan. They don't need the
No, as we already know too, what was it, like 20 or 30% of the people that are getting this forgiveness are people that weren't able to finish college because they were too poor. So no.
Okay, even the argument he is making. Okay, fine. Let's ignore all of the parts of that were not even true, and let's just say for a minute that you're going to forgive $10,000 of that doctor's hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt. Like, I'm actually also not worried about that. Like, that is a splash in the bucket comparatively anyway. So, like, I can't even be bothered to care.
Well, and the other thing that he's missing is the whole thing's means tested. So if you make above a certain amount, you're not eligible. So
Right.
These doctors and lawyers that are making all this money, they're not even eligible for this forgiveness to begin with. They can't even apply. They can apply for it, but they're not going to get it.
You'd have to be in. I don't know what scenario you'd have to be in as a doctor to actually be eligible for it.
Nope.
But even if you are and you've got your, hundreds of thousands of dollars of whatever, if $10,000 gets thrown at it by, some forgiveness thing, whatever. I don't care.
Well, who are all these rich people that are making under $120,000 a year that are getting this $10,000 loan forgiveness that pisses him off so much? And like you said, even $10,000 to them means nothing.
Right. Even if they qualified for it, if there's some universe to where they have some job where they actually do make under that amount, which
they're making
confuses me, but I'm going to literally suspend that belief as well and say, I still don't care if $10,000 gets thrown at it.
They're making more than that a month anyway. Why do they give a shit?
Right.
Yeah. Second, what do you think universities are going to do when they see this passed or see it come into law, or if the Supreme Court, for whatever reason, doesn't shoot this down? They're going to raise tuition. And all they're going to say is, well, just get a loan because it's going to be forgiven anyway, right?
One, they can't raise tuition. It's now capped under the bill that this was a part of, or the executive order. Tuition's capped, so they can't be raising tuition anymore. On top of that, more money is going to go back into the universities. So the universities are going to have more cash. They won't have to raise tuition anymore. I keep telling that story. My mother used to be the dean of admissions at a college, and she'd tell you, in early 2000s, mid 2000s, when she got there, she was like, yeah, it was 67% of my budget was from federal funding from that came through the state. She's like, after about 7 or 8 years, it was about 16%. And what happened?
Oh.
We had to raise our tuition and our fees to cover our costs. That's where all the raises came from. Not from loans being forgiven or caps being done or more money going back in.
You could make the argument that the federal government created the tuition hikes that the students ended up with.
They did. It was intentional, but yeah.
By withholding the funds from universities, putting the universities in a situation where that was how they had to make that up.
Yeah, we covered that was part of the Lee Atwater and Reagan and the Southern strategy
Right.
to try to keep black people and women out of college. That was part of their strategy, was to cut funding so that tuition would have to be raised. So he's got that backwards. Why would they raise tuition? It doesn't affect them if the loans are forgiven. They've already gotten the money. Right? So that's all backwards.
And then if you're a student like my wife, medical school, she had to pay her way through. She paid off her loan. Is she getting a retroactive check? And then when these tuitions actually go up in the future, then those students are screwed. So it's only a Band-Aid. It doesn't fix the bigger problem, which is it costs $80,000 a year to go to Georgetown, where my wife went, Stanford, Duke, Harvard. You're talking $320,000 to send your...
Okay, so those schools, though, this is most...
Because most of America is going to those schools, too.
Right, yeah. You're talking about schools that have like a 2% acceptance rate, right? On top of that,
Right?
yeah,
I went to state school. You went to the same state school that I did for your undergraduate. My
public school.
master's degree went to, one of the city universities here in New York. Yeah, wasn't any. I don't even know what they're talking about. They're already out of touch that those are the schools that they're starting to tout off. And those Pell Grant recipients, I'm not saying those places didn't have some people that got a Pell Grant. That would not be what I'm saying. But the majority of them probably weren't at those schools because they couldn't afford to make up the difference in those schools unless they got crazy amount of scholarships.
That's my point. The kids at those schools are either legacy kids where mom and dad are paying for it anyway, or they're kids, like you said, that got huge scholarships, which are few and far between. The majority of people, like you and me, go to public school for our undergrad because that's what we can afford.
Right. Go to some of the state schools. Maybe they start at community colleges, but they go to or the 4-year state schools that have more affordable tuitions.
Well, and I'll throw you
tuitions, but
well, and
obviously,
I'll throw you this too. I did my graduate degree at a private school. It was a nonprofit private. It was a phenomenal school. But the thing about it is what they don't tell you is graduate students at those schools, I didn't pay for all of my degree. Alumni paid for a good chunk of my degree. They don't make money off grad students at private schools. They make money off the undergrad students. So what he's talking about is it's all nonsense. I mean, this is like a rich person's idea of what's happening versus what's actually happening. We're not talking about somebody who went to Georgetown. Most of those people have already paid off their loans or didn't even have to take loans.
so, I want to throw another one out here too. And this isn't about the forgiving the loans thing, but what I feel like I'm hearing from these people that are in this higher socioeconomic bracket already is they just can't stand the idea of somebody getting access to a resource they don't already have.
Right.
Like they need to control that. So I'll throw another one out there. I did have to pay for all of the years of my education. There was no first certain amount of it for free. That was not a thing. Wasn't a thing for you because you were going at the same time as me. And whenever the conversation comes up about, free community college or whatnot, free first however many years of a college education for somebody, I look around in my classroom of high school students and I go, good, I will want every single one of them to get that. And you know what? I didn't get it, and I still want them to have it.
Absolutely.
I still want somebody else to have an easier time than me. I don't want all those kids in my classroom to be saddled with the debt I got saddled with.
Yeah, that's the point. It's a continuous. It's a continuing problem. We need to fix it. And if that means
But
that,
these entitled rich people want to sit around and say, well, since I didn't get it, you all need to not get it because I didn't get to have. Like, how selfish are we?
no, well, as opposed,
Somebody have an easier time than you.
well, as opposed to
You
our,
know?
yeah, as opposed to our attitude, which is okay. We got screwed. At least they're not getting screwed. I mean, why would I want that to continue?
And to get screwed just because you did.
Yeah.
Or get screwed even worse because now it costs more money.
Right.
And they'll be sadder, even more debt than you were.
Right.
Well, since you were settled in the debt, it's only fair that they get it worse than you did.
Do you think any of these people have freaking student debt? These people are all freaking millionaires on this show. They don't have any student debt. This is just talking points that they're trying to spew out. They don't know what they're talking about.
Your kid to school, you got to clear $500,000 before taxes just to afford to send one of your kids to a private.
Oh my God, you gotta. Oh my gosh. Yeah, because that's what's happening. Everybody's, yeah. The average person has $500,000 to send their kid to school. Yeah, that's what's happening in the world. See, he doesn't know what he's talking about.
And so Larry Summers, who was Secretary Treasurer under Bill Clinton, right? He's obviously the senior economic advisor to Barack Obama. He says this move will only raise inflation. Other than that, great job, Bernie.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And way back in the dark ages, everyone will remember that except for you because you're young. But Bernie Sanders is the one who came up with student loan forgiveness a million years ago. And remember, when he came up with it, everyone thought it sounded crazy, and he kind of got blown off about the whole thing. And now here we are trying to we have the U.S. Supreme Court trying to make a major decision on all of this money that's going to be spent. But one of the questions is how much does he even understand what it is he's discussing? And I'm going to go to the soundbite and then I'm going to come to you, Kat, because we can hear him also talking about equality and equity. Take a listen.
How would you differentiate between equity and equality?
Well, equality, we talk about, I don't know what the answer to that is. Come me to think of it, equality is equality of opportunity.
Equity, I think, is more guarantee of outcome, is it not?
I think so. I think that's
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but she doesn't. Okay. God. Oh, man. It depends on what we're talking about. So when he's talking about equality of opportunity, everybody should have the same opportunity, right? When you talk about equity or equality of outcome, that's not a thing that people talk about in the sense of a goal to be achieved. What it's talking about is when we look at different groups, are we seeing similar results? And if we're not, then clearly there's something going on there, right? So if we say, well, look, we have equal opportunity to go to college, but we find that, well, gee, a lot less, black kids and Hispanic kids are going to college. Well, then that means there's something going on, that they're not really getting equal opportunity. But that would be looking at equity. That would be looking at equal outcome. The outcome is that we're not seeing as many going. So the outcome is not what you'd think it would be. So we got to look at what's the cause of that, or that's just a social science thing. They try to do this spin of equality of outcome being the goal. Like everybody should have a graduate degree and a Ferrari and a big house kind of thing. It's like, that's not what it is. It's a metric to look at. Well, look, we're not getting the same outcome from these different disparate groups. So there's something clearly that we're missing, where opportunity is not equal. That's all that is. So it's a weird thing to bring up. They caught him kind of flubbed on a question because it is a difficult question, but it's like, I don't know what that matters to this whole question, but I think I just wanted to put a pin in that just real quick. And then we'll skip through this.
Nailed it.
What was that?
I said, quite frankly, it seems, I don't know why they're even bothering to bring that up. It is not easy to explain the difference between equality and equity. They are different things,
right? For
sure. I feel like they're just bringing it up so they can say that he does stuff.
Yeah, that's all. That's all it was. They just caught him on a. That's why the Chiron here says Bernie can't differentiate between equality and equity.
Eventually. That is what the difference is. Look, I think he's right about one thing. I don't know if I count as the younger generation or not. I'm 34 years old. I do feel like I deserve a break. What I deserve a break from is now that, I did pay off my loans. I chose a school based on the scholarship that I got, and I got into Columbia Journalism School for grad school, and I unenrolled because I was like, how am I going to pay back this $80,000 loan on an entry-level journalist salary? I never will. So I interned, waitress. I worked really hard. I finally started to make some money, and now they're taking so much of it from me in taxes, and then all of this stuff that I can still keep is worth so much less because of inflation. So I would like a break. I would like to be left alone. That's what I would love. And again, that is unfortunately quite typical. Politicians, they run off of sound bites. They don't really even know what they're saying.
That's a pot calling the kettle black. Oh, come on, get to the point, guys.
It's often way worse than just an interview.
What was the point?
Her point is she wants a break, but other than wanting a break, I fail to understand even what point she's trying to make. I feel like she's not.
She's not. She's just bitching about I have to pay taxes and,
With Bill Maher, okay? They don't know what they're talking about when they vote for something that impacts all of us.
But Charlie Cat brings up a great point about self-responsibility. You took the time to stop and reflect on what it was you were going.
What was that?
She did. She made up a great point. What was it?
Well, she didn't.
She didn't have a point.
There wasn't a point. And the self-responsibility thing is bullshit. Let's see if we get to it, because I want to get to this last guy real quick.
To take on and what it would mean in the long run. I think that there are so many people out there who are weighted down with student loan debt, and it's enormous.
He's
really
here in a minute. Okay.
But there are a lot of people who really don't stop and think.
Come on, buddy.
About what's going to happen in the decades to come when it comes to paying it back and the ability to do so.
Yeah, which is the most fundamental version of self-governance, is governing your own, making your own decisions and governing your own behavior so that you get what you want. And I love that he gets all upset about the fact that the guy is calling it a giveaway. He goes, that's your term. Well, what would he prefer? Political corruption? Because that's what this was used for. This was used to buy votes in front of the election. I call it reparations for rich kids.
Yeah, everybody does that. And it's not for rich kids. God, man.
But underneath it all, it really does, I think it reveals...
Hang on, go ahead.
They're clearly not paying any damn attention.
No, they're trying to spin it the way they want to spin it.
The entire political sort of view of the world that Bernie Sanders has, which is that all the money you make, Kat, belongs to the government.
Right.
What you get to take home is just what they let you take home. And the fraud here is that, of course, these kids that love this idea of getting their loans paid for by somebody else, they're not understanding the fact that Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden believe that all the money even the money that they give to them from other taxpayers, that doesn't belong to them either.
Okay, that's what I wanted to get to. Jesus. Forgot how long it took them to get there. So that's the primary argument, is this is going to hurt the taxpayers. This is not fair. The taxpayers are paying for your student loans, right? They're spending this. It's only rich kids. It's not. It's mostly your average person, that's getting this. So let's go to this, because this is, I want to do a couple things, but I'm just going to skip here to my closing argument real quick on this, and you can jump in, because this benefits mostly minorities and women. These student loan forgiveness, the way it's set up, and they're all lower income. They're not people making above whatever $120,000 a year, because those people are means tested out of this program. So these are people, middle class and lower. Okay. Now I went through Slate and I pulled this from them, and maybe we'll go through these articles one day because it's interesting. But roughly, so there's not a lot of data. The education department doesn't keep a ton of data, but we have some. So $70.3 billion in payments were made in 2021. So student loan payments to federal student loans, not private, just federal. Okay. The government doesn't collect most of that. All right. So let's look at, I want to do this one real quick. If I can find it. It's this one. Hang on a second, everybody. Oh, here we go. Yeah. So when that money gets paid, where does all that money go? So federal student loans are funded by issuing U.S. treasuries. So your tax dollars don't pay for the loans directly. What happens is the government issues U.S. treasuries, which is debt, and then it pays those back at interest. Okay? And usually banks buy those, whatever. So that's where most of the money goes. Okay? Then there are other things, because there's loan servicers, because the government doesn't service all the loans by itself. Right? So loan servicers get fees. So first off, there's interest that has to be paid to the U.S. treasuries. Right? So the Treasury Department has to pay that interest off first. So the interest you pay in your loan, a lot of that goes to the Treasury Department. Then you have fees paid to the loan servicers like Navient or Mohila or whatever the others, to the actual person servicing the loan, which is usually a private company. So they get fees, right, on top of that. Plus there's subsidized interest benefits that the government pays on the Stafford loans for the grace periods and other things like that. And there's a high default rate for federal student loans because they're not backed by anything. And a lot of times they're signed to 18, 19-year-olds. So a lot of those are never collected. There's a lot of forgiveness and discharge programs that already exist. You also have to factor in that when the government administration, Department of Education, when they collect those loans, they have to hire staff to do that, which means it costs them money to run that, just to make sure that the loans are coming in. They have to hire accountants and comptrollers and staff to handle all that and to negotiate between the loan service providers or directly to the students, or et cetera. So at the end of the day, at $70.3 billion that came in, right, in student loan payments, most of it went to the investors in interest payments. Probably about $22.4 billion is the estimate. On top of that, government cost expenditures, out of that $70 billion, the government maybe collected 30 on what was probably over $40 billion worth of loans. So think about it like this. Lacey loans me $40, right? I pay her back $70. But Lacey has to pay interest rates to other people. She's got to pay fees to other people. She's got to pay costs for collecting the loan from me, processing it, getting it organized and settled. So by the end of the day, after Lacey pays everybody, she only collects $30. So she lost $10 on that loan.
And time.
What?
And my time.
And that's...
I lost 10% of my time.
Yep. And on top of that fact, so that's... We're looking at now, it's not $10, it's $10 billion that was probably lost. And that's every year. That's not one time. That's every year. Now, factor this in. Student debt currently increases at a rate of about 7.2%. So I did this real quick. So currently, last year was $1.76 trillion in outstanding student debt. That means by this year, it'll be $1.89 trillion. So it will have increased by $103 billion. Right? 5 years, it'll be 2.5 trillion, and in 10 years, it'll be a little over 3.54. So it'll doubled in 10 years. So not only did Lacey lose $10 this year, she also issued another $103 in debt that she's not going to be able to collect back, and she's going to lose more money on that each year. So in fact, the current student debt system, the way it's set up, costs the taxpayers more and more money every year because it's not a profitable business. It loses money every year. So in fact, over the long run, it would probably be cheaper to just forgive all the debt. And instead of taking that money and giving it in loans, give it directly to the universities. And the universities can lower their costs. Which is not all that different from what we used to do back in the late 70s. It's basically what we did in the late 70s. And what was happening then? They wanted to move all the colleges to a completely free college system where it was just funded by the government or funded by the states.
Well, you know what? There are some countries that have that going on. And you know what? There are countries where the people are highly educated. Their economies work really great. Yeah.
Yeah. So
nobody miserable.
That would be my counter argument, which is, if you're sitting there saying, well, this is a drag on the taxpayers and a waste, I agree. I don't think that debt forgiveness is a drag or a waste. I think the fucking system as it is a huge waste of taxpayer money every year. And if we just got rid of the system, I'm not saying we have to do it overnight, but I'm saying we should. And in that way, taxpayers would be making more money. You'd have more educated people. More people could go to college. That also means Black people and Hispanic people and women, Native American people would be going to college. I know that's scary for some of you out there, but that's what it would mean. You wouldn't have all this debt, and that $70.3 billion in loan payments wouldn't be going to loan payments. Most of it would be going back into the economy.
Right. My big argument for it is super, super simple. If you forgive $20,000 in student loan debt for somebody because they were one of the Pell Grant recipients, roughly, they don't have to spend about $200 a month in payments.
Mm-hmm.
20,000 is usually, on the standard repayment system, somewhere around $200 a month, give or take,
It depends on what your rate is, yeah.
And, right, somewhere around $200 a month, let's just say that for the sake of argument. So if I don't have $200 going out for my student loans per month, what can I afford to do?
Bills, rent.
I can afford to stimulate the economy in some other way. Maybe I'm saving for a down payment for a house. Maybe I'm able to get a new vehicle faster. Maybe I'm just enjoying my life more and I'm going out to dinner and stimulating the economy that way more because I have a little bit more disposable income, right? I mean, the options are endless, but if that person has another couple $100 a month of their own income to do something with, they're going to do something with it, and it's going to benefit the economy.
Put it in the market.
Right.
Save for retirement. Yeah. Not get into credit card debt. You have less bankruptcies, things like that. Yeah. So, I mean, the whole thing is just, all their talking points are bullshit. I mean, it's not just rich kids. This is mostly for middle to lower income people. Those are who are getting this. Trust me, not a lot of Georgetown graduates who are getting this. Not a lot of Harvard graduates are getting this. Most of those people had it paid for. Rich kids don't pay for college. They don't borrow loans to go to college. It doesn't happen. So they're just living in a fantasy about that whole thing. Anyway.